the end of my last video, I tried to quote a proverb and I didn't get it quite right. Uh, the correct proverb is the tree remembers what the axe forgets. So the axe has done something. It has harmed the tree. The tree remembers, but the axe does not remember. Um, so this is about harm reduction. This recording is about harm reduction, and my last video, I talked a lot about ridiculing and insults and slander and defamation and things like that. Um, I'm going to go through a few quotes by Marie von Franz, and she's putting an emphasis on needling and how uh, pricking somebody and needling them is really a way of putting the individual to sleep. And also she wants to emphasize how dangerous it is to live alone. She writes, when one lives alone, separating oneself from the rest of the tribe, this at once attracts the nature spirits in a negative form. They attack you, and if you are not called a medicine man or shaman, you do not have the magic to defend yourself, and so you succumb to the powers of the unconscious. If you want to know what that means psychologically, just go live for several weeks alone in a forest or in a mountain hut, and then you will know. The devil attacks from every side. So Marie von Franz puts an emphasis on how, whether you want to call it solitude or isolation, um, being alone with nature is not always safe. She writes, isolation always invites an attack by the powers of evil and the dangerous aspects of the unconscious. That is why, with the exception of hermits and shamans, people who have a specific religious call and the power to overcome attacks of the unconscious, it is always dangerous to put oneself in such an isolated position. In many archaic religions, one is advised not to live alone, especially not to live alone in nature. So anybody who's spent time alone, and if you study your dreams when you sleep at night, you'll notice that there's an explosion from the unconscious, a kind of an assault on the soul. She writes, so there are needles that makes one ill, needles that make one sleep, and there are needles which prick one into confusion. When you make personal remarks aimed at a person's complex, you can completely knock them out. In a way, that is also giving them a sleeping needle, for they are no longer composed mentally. They can't answer your questions. They are confused. They are pushed for the moment into the unconscious and made helpless. The art of needling is still used today in diplomatic and political discussions. Some use it unconsciously and some use it consciously, but always this bringing out of a needling remark at a certain moment is the thing that throws the other off balance. Some people are real wizards in that way, but they are only putting to work the same forces that spring up by themselves in the unconscious. She writes, always we find the idea that a projectile has made the person ill. It can come, as I say, from a god or from a human being, and it is closely linked with the negative projections. You can project negative things onto other people, and such projections can hit them and make them ill. So I'm going to stop it right there. Anybody who has been called stupid or ugly or um, humiliated or slandered or defamed, these are all like receiving a projectile. And the Buddha described the desire of love as an arrow that digs savagely into the flesh. That it is more rarely evil people and more often gods or demons who send these arrows of illness in agreement with the observations of modern psychologists that projections are not enacted by us but happen unconsciously. That is, they emanate from complexes or archetypes of the unconscious. Among ordinary people, it is usually venomous slander that is experienced to such arrows. We might also note the relation of the German word Krankheit, meaning illness, or Kranken, meaning to wound emotionally. We still speak today of barbs and pointed remarks. In India, the word salya means arrowhead, thorn, or splinter. And the doctor who removes such arrows from the bodies of sick people, it is said that he functions like a judge who removes the thorn of injustice from a trial. The thorn is obviously something like a bad effect that has created a legal uncertainty. Psychiatrists and psychologists know that pointed or sharp forms in patients' drawings and paintings represent destructive impulses. So this brings us back to the proverb: the tree remembers what the axe forgets. And people who do us harm, people who needle us, people who drive a projectile into us, they often don't remember. But the person who's put to sleep, the person who's knocked out, eventually remembers the incident. So uh, there are attacks from every side, and it's dangerous to be isolated and to be solitary and to be alone. And it could come from now the psychology of the attacker. It could be that they feel very small and very weak. And as Alfred Adler pointed out, the greater the feeling of inferiority that has been experienced, the more powerful is the urge to conquest, and the more violent the emotional agitation. And Marie von Franz talks about the inferiority feeling as a conceited little dance we do. So somebody calls you stupid, you start calling yourself stupid, they start calling themselves stupid. It's a conceited dance. It's an inflation of the psyche. It's a disorder, and we'll probably make another video in the future about this sort of thing. There's so much literature on being hit by the arrow. Uh, Thich Nhat Hanh talks about the image of someone who's hit by an arrow. A few minutes later, a second arrow comes and strikes exactly the same spot. After the second arrow comes, not only is the pain doubled, but it can be tripled or 10 times more painful or intense. And that's Pain, Despair, and the Second Arrow by Thich Nhat Hanh.